Howdy all, it's Friday. It's the Friday before Super Bowl Sunday, so we can get used to all those ridiculous commercials that we'll be seeing. I'm sure that, and make mental note of it for our next show on Monday or Tuesday. The best maybe two or three, or the worst two or three. I have a feeling there'll be a lot of crappy ones, but that usually is the case.
Okay, I will tell you this. Back in the day, I remember this is what I used to do to watch the Super Bowl when I was a kid. I would go to the deli. I would get a hero. We called them heroes. That's the way they were in New York. And I would sit in front of the TV. There would be like an hour pregame show, and the game would be on. And I was happy as a clam. And I sort of wish that we were back in that era in a way.
NFL Network is starting their pregame at 8:30 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, just stop.
Yeah. Our tradition, I have a bunch of friends, and yes, I do have friends, a bunch of friends who come over, and we normally will get a sheet pizza and a bucket of wings. Now my friends are, we're getting a little older, and the wings, it's just too much. So
you're not sitting well with the pizza, are they?
Yeah. No, after a while, it's just,
now it's one or the other.
Yeah, now it's one of the other, it's the pizza. But I'll tell you this: the prices, and I'm not going to name the business in Buffalo. The prices are absolutely absurd. I would say back in the day, back say for example, 20, 25 years ago when the Bills were in the Super Bowl, a sheet pizza and a bucket of 50 wings would have cost you in the neighborhood of $30-$35.
Right.
Now it's $80 for one particular very famous wing place and pizza place in Buffalo. $80 for a sheet pizza and 50 wings, and the pizza is okay. It's not, the wings are good, but the pizza's okay.
To be fair, there was that wheat crisis like a year ago that really did bump up.
No. This is 3 or 4 years.
I know, but I'm saying in the last year or so, prices have really gone up on pizza. Now it seems to have leveled off. But Mike, 100 years ago with inflation, you just got to deal, man.
Jeez. I'm just saying they've boosted the prices to a ridiculous
amount.
You
keep buying it.
Stop buying it. No, I don't. That's the thing. Only for the Super Bowl.
But you're buying it for that. Buy something else.
If you're looking for cheap food, like when I was in New York City in the fall, why go at pizza? You get halal food. It's way better bang for your buck.
Yeah, but
traditional stuff, you got to switch it over.
It's tradition. Yeah, that's honestly, it's tradition.
All right.
But anyway,
so you want us to Purdue predictions, right?
Yeah. If you want to,
I'll do it.
I think the spread is 4.5, and if we want to just do it with the spread or just pick the game,
I'm just going to do it outright.
Okay.
Look, I was wrong about the Jags, but the Jags did make it a very close game. I will say that. And I didn't pick the Eagles in Minnesota. Watching them, knowing the Eagles the way I do because I live in the area, knowing the Patriots the way that I do because I had to endure them being a Jet fan, which, by the way, I'm working on a Jet article right now. People should go to Sportsology later. It'll be very sad. It's a sad article. Looking at all those things, all the factors, all the BS that goes into everything, the BS about Gronk being in the concussion protocol so he doesn't have to give interviews. I thought that was like the nice latest end around for New England to not have to talk. I'm still going to pick the Patriots. I'm going to go with a 24-20 score. Whatever happens in the first half will not happen in the second half. We know that about the Patriots.
Yeah.
And so if New England's up by a lot in the first half, the game's over. And if they're not up by a lot in the first half, then you're like, okay, we got a game, but somehow they always manage to win. So and Pete Carroll aside, what are you going to do?
Peter.
Okay, 27-21 Eagles.
Ooh.
And because I'm so cynical on every sports league and its officiating and rules, someone's going to go and do a headshot early on Brady, take him out of the game because there's no repercussions for doing it. You might as well.
Ooh.
Eagles are going to get their first Super Bowl, and Brady isn't in the game at the end of it.
Okay.
Wow. That's possible. Anything is possible. I have a weird feeling that Gronk is going to be a major piece to the Patriots winning this game because not that people aren't expecting him to play, but I think people are thinking he's going to be limited because of this concussion that he had. But to be affected by concussion, you actually have to have a brain. And I don't, Gronk is from Western New York, and sometimes I question whether he has a brain.
That's fair.
Yes, I'll go 24-16 Patriots. I'm questioning whether the Eagles can score with Foles. I know that they did great against Minnesota. It was at home though. This is going to be, and they're going to have a very friendly crowd in Minnesota. The question is whether New England's defense can adjust. I think they'll be able to because Belichick can make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what? So I think it'll be close for a while.
For the Eagles, but
yeah, I think it'll be close for a while. But I think in the end the Patriots will win.
One quick short story before we start. So I was in a mall today and I was waiting. I was getting a piece of jewelry fixed. So I'm walking around killing time and found an FYE, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know they were still in business anywhere. Yeah. And so I go into the FYE, and they had everything that was new was in the front as far as CDs and stuff, and I didn't see anything I really wanted. I'm not a vinyl guy. I used to be, but no longer. But I went to the back of the store, and they still had a massive backlog of CDs, and so my thought was, oh, they must be sending like all the FYEs stock into like a few stores that are left, right? So I went there and I'm looking, and I found some stuff by a group called All Time Low. We've been filling in CDs here in my house on them, and we like them a lot. But then I'm talking to some guy, and he's like, hey, would you find anything? And I'm like, nah, nothing out of the ordinary. He goes, yeah, I found like David Crosby with the Grateful Dead here in a concert. You got to really dig. And I'm like, once he said that, I was like mining for gold then, right? I'm like looking, right?
What?
David Crosby with the Grateful Dead, like 1970.
Yeah.
This was on a CD. Like, where's that from?
Well, I mean, the Grateful,
incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Grateful Dead, like Jerry Garcia and Phil Lesh played on Graham Nash's solo albums.
Yeah.
They were buddies.
Jerry Garcia did. You're talking to a Deadhead here.
Okay. So
I followed that band for 8 years, right up until the Garcia died.
Yeah, the guitar. I'm not the biggest Deadhead and Dead fan, but the guitar solo on "I Used to Be a King" is phenomenal. So anybody want to listen to some old music? That's good stuff.
So the guy lived
pedal steel guitar for a lot of Crosby, Stills, and Nash stuff. Yes. And Nash and Crosby came in and helped the Dead learn how to sing a little bit in harmonies. And when the Dead got out of their major funk of not being able to take their sound into their albums, they wrote 2 albums, and basically it was Crosby and Nash who came in and said, no, you got to start singing like this. You guys can sing, you just don't write music to sing with. Right. And boom, it all changed for them.
Oh, interesting. Well, that lit the fuse, right? And it's sort of like there was like this flashback where it's Friday, I'm in a record store. Like 17, 18-year-old Russ Cohen, when he was working and living at home, I'd spend 3/4 of my money on records every week, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I was that guy again. And it was so much fun. And I found a 1994 radio broadcast of Green Day, a concert that was like, not King Biscuit, but like that. And I don't know if they did it just for the radio station or if it was part of their tour that year. And they just played it on a few radio stations. And then someone made a CD of it, and it's in FYE. So I buy it. And I start playing it in the car, and it's great, right? Like, this Green Day is held up very well, right, but nobody could ever hold up to what they used to be at the very beginning. They just, it's hard. And so, in 94, clearly they sounded different. Now they have a lot more instruments. Back then they didn't. So it was a lot more stripped down, and I sort of like that. The only bad part is, and this is what I'll warn people if they start doing it, is they did censor it. Like, the curses they weren't bleeped, but they were sort of sucked out. But other than that, it really is fantastic, and it was nice to find.
See, the thing, and this is the last thing before we start the show. I mean, I'm old enough to be somebody who would love to go to every month or two they would have a record show, like at some place like a VFW or someplace like that, and it would be a place to get bootleg recordings. Now you go on YouTube, now you go to websites, I can listen to bootleg recordings, and at least you can listen to something online and know whether it's good or not. Back then it was sort of like, roll the dice. Yeah, it was blind faith or roll the dice. Well, I mean, I can't tell you how many old Genesis concerts, old Yes concerts that I got, it's my thing, but you know, I'm a big Sarah McLachlan fan, and I went to a concert of hers in Buffalo in 1995. About 2 months later, I go to this place, and they had a recording of it plugged into the soundboard, absolutely perfect. I can't tell you how many bootleg DVDs and CDs that I traded this concert for, because I don't think anybody else had it recorded live like I did, that down the years that I swapped for this one concert. So I miss that, but it's weird that it's like an FYE instead of someplace like a.
I know this Green Day one I've never seen anywhere. Like I've not even seen like YouTube stuff on it. So I was like, you have to buy it. If you see something like that, you have to buy it.
This is why the record industry and the music recording industry is actually dying, because they're serving up pablum, but they have all these unique things that exist. Yep. So, and we can get off this in a second, but I'll explain something really interesting that few people know. The Grateful Dead, in their vast catalog of music, they basically license it out. They control the releases of what they want, but someone else owns it. It's done through Rhino Records, another company.
Right.
It's stored in this special place in LA. But what else is stored there? Almost every other recording company's vault of live shows that they've recorded, movies, everything. So special design, fire resistant. But here's the thing: there's performances from the '60s, all these different concerts that they have that they own the rights to.
Yep.
The problem is that no one can agree upon the financial stuff. Right. And what's happening is the generation that cares about that is going. Dying. We're the ones who want to hear it,
right?
And they're going to argue over it, and it's not going to have any value eventually. Right. And the one thing that a lot of these bands, like the Grateful Dead, who allowed all their recordings to happen, is they realized you got to get it out while the fans are still there,
right?
And that's the thing. Like, you know, you talk about Yes and Genesis. There's a lot of stuff out there. It's just it's hidden, and no one.
I will say this about Yes: in the last 10 years. They have put out what I used to only be able to get on bootlegs on CDs, about 10 good concerts, but that's still probably just scratching the surface.
Well, when Genesis, and I promise this will be the last thing, when Genesis put out their box set a few years ago, they re-released bootleg stuff that had been out there that all they did was they cleaned up the audio and re-released it. So it was already stuff that audiophiles that big fans already had, but they put their stamp of approval on it because the recording was good enough for them to actually sell. So anyway, all right, let's get started. And we're going to be taking some questions in the second half of the show. If you go to the blog,
I already took care of that. I already posted it.
Okay, all right, but for those who don't know, if you go to the YouTube, there's a chat on the right side of the window. You can ask your questions there. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, February 2nd, 2018.
Hi, I'm Peter Tessier on the Winnipeg Jets, broadcasting from Vancouver.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
It was that Grateful Dead haze and delay.
Yeah.
I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com.
We are looking to see if he still had his Jerry Garcia tie. That's what he's doing.
There you go. It's T-minus 24 days and counting to the NHL trade deadline. And we'll talk about some of the games last night. And we'll start with the goaltender interference situation because we had two instances last night. And, you know, this is after being in the building at Air Canada Center now a couple weeks ago when Colorado was there and Austin Matthews' goal got waved off for goalie interference, and basically there was no contact in between Bernier and Matthews, and very similarly on that McDavid Ryan Strome goal when Edmonton scored, but that was waved as a no goal. After the All-Star break, there was a clarification supposedly by the league about goaltender interference. Well, last night we had two instances. And Peter, one involved James Neal and the Winnipeg Jets, and I didn't see the full replay until about an hour ago. How in the hell can someone break a stick over the goaltender's head and it not be goalie interference?
It's simply incredible. Now, the NHL released and I put it in my blog today on HockeyBuzz. You can see the tweet that they have there of what the logic was. It was because the puck had gone past Hellebuck that that was basically it. So it wasn't interference because the puck had moved past him. It just hadn't gone in the net. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the replay, the stick whacks him, and then he looks to the side, and then the puck's pushed in. So you could take a stick to the head that then breaks across your helmet, your mask, mm-hmm. and you think that doesn't potentially stun you for just the half second it would take to look where the puck is or distract you. It's incredible. But the worst part is, if you look at the video I put on the blog today, you will see the ref looking behind, and he should be able to see that a stick broke across the mask of a goalie.
Right.
And he doesn't even call high sticking or a slashing call.
Right.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
If it's not goalie interference, it's a penalty that negates the goal.
Right. And the shaft is flying in midair as the puck is going over the goal line.
I think what we should do now is put the goalies behind glass, like the bank tellers, and just have the stick out there and have like the whole parts of the net. So this way you can't run into the goalie or you'll hit a pane of glass.
It's going to be like the cameraman behind the little window.
Yeah.
Sort of like.
I think that's what they need to do, so we don't have to worry about it.
I'm not sure what the NHL wants. So first of all,
right.
Maybe it'll shake loose.
Right now we're all confused, and I don't even like devoting time to it anymore because I can't even get upset about it anymore because we know that something is going to happen in a big game. We know it, and so it's maddening that we've gotten to this point in the season, and you could have two different calls like that, and everybody's saying what the heck.
Yeah, and the other one that happened last night, and it drew the ire of Doug Armstrong, the GM of the St. Louis Blues. Jake Allen in the crease. Now he was going right to left, and momentum was carrying him, right to left. But Jake DeBrusk prevented him from, if he had the opportunity to go back and try to stop the puck. Jake DeBrusk stopped him because Jake DeBrusk's body was sliding through the crease and prevented him from being able to go back. So, it was clearly, in terms of the rules, I think it was clearly goalie interference, but they didn't call it. And now, basically
Armstrong, the rules aren't clear. That's the problem. Right. There's nothing that we could say anymore that's clearly goalie interference. Nothing.
I'm back. I don't know what happened there, but I lost everything. But it's crazy. But James Neal doesn't have the best history, was my point. And that's so true. Now, doesn't the Department of Player Safety have something to say to James Neal about going for a puck at the goalie's head? There's so much that's gone wrong with how this play is viewed in an effort to justify not doing something that it's become laughable. And that's my problem with it.
Look, every league's going through it. We don't know what a catch is in the NFL.
No.
You don't know what goalie
What's a strike?
Huh?
What's a strike now?
Right. You don't know what a ball and strike is anymore.
And to your point regarding the Department of Player Safety and recidivism, and this is not
going to. You're using words our audience.
Oh, shut up.
Trying to act smart.
Goaltender, not goaltender interference, but Radko Gudas last night. He slammed Palmieri in the game, the Flyers-Devils game. Now, if you look at it and you don't realize this is a guy who's had multiple offenses, you could have said he was jumping out of the way of the Flyers player and just so happened to jump right into Palmieri. But with Gudas, I don't put anything past him. So, but I haven't heard anything today from the Department of Player Safety.
On it. Yep. They did give him a penalty in the game, right? And it's one of those things where now as a player, if you sort of – and look, we've all done it playing sports. I've played second base enough to sort of, block the bag probably more than I'm allowed to, even in softball, right? Like we've all done – but I don't try and hurt anybody. Yeah. I think Gudas now has probably gotten really good at it looks like a bad hit, but I didn't do it, so I'm not going to get suspended kind of hit. I think that's what we're talking about. I think the only reason he's not getting suspended is, again, going back to that ridiculous system where Palmieri came back and he actually scored a goal. So because he wasn't hurt, Gudas isn't going to have to serve any time. But was that clean? No, it was not clean.
No. And if anybody saw any of the chicanery that was going on in the Sabres game against Florida, and that was probably the only reason to watch the Sabres game against Florida, was after the game you heard there were a bunch of
your family member you'd watch.
Well, I think maybe I doubt that even the families were in the stands at first at KeyBank Center, because there was hardly anybody there. I gave away tickets for that game, Ross. But with like 4 minutes left to go in the third period, I think it was 3-2 at that point. Evander Kane laid out Barkov, and that started everything. Johan Larsson's is getting a hearing with the Department of Player Safety because he cross-checked Vincent Trocheck across the neck and head. So I mean, that's probably the only reason to even watch that game was to see what happened. But it's weird to say this.
That is a problem when you have teams that are completely out of it now playing each other.
Yeah,
this is going to happen out of frustration. It is.
Yeah. Yes, and I believe Harry Sateri won the game again.
Of course he won. I mean, Mike, you continue to rip Harry Sateri, and I can go back and tell you, I could show you the interview I did with him. He was the second-ranked European goalie in the draft, and you're just a hater.
Okay, let's go through some of the games last night, and like I said, we'll take some questions in the chat in the second half of the show. Russ at Madison Square Garden last night.
Was there a game? Was there really?
Well, it was a one-sided game, if you ask me. The Maple Leafs win 4-0, second consecutive shutout for the Leafs after the All-Star break. Curtis McElhinney with 25 saves. Justin Hall is the first Maple Leaf defenseman in history to score 2 goals in his first 2 NHL games, which that's very impressive. And I guess only 6 defensemen have done it in history. But I don't think he's going to enjoy that when he gets sent back down to the Toronto Marlies. And I'm not trying to be mean here, but
I don't even remember Justin Hall. I said that on the radio this morning, but then I looked up my files, right? And what I found in my files was a gem. Back when the Frozen Four was in Philadelphia, Justin Hall, who had not scored a goal the entire season, scored a goal to beat North Dakota in the Frozen Four, not the final game, but in the games leading up to it. And Anthony Mingione wrote the article for my website. I'd completely forgotten about that, but that's how much Justin Hall.
It's Hall. It's pronounced Hall, like almost like Hall. Yeah.
Okay, was off the radar. But again, what's funny is, and I always point this out, and Flyers fans do this too, I'm told. I don't know enough about it to say that, but I know Ranger fans do. Ranger fans will always say, hey, there's that rookie goalie or first or second game, third game, anybody, forward or defenseman, that always scores and always, hurts the Rangers. And I think what happens is players elevate their game when they go to MSG. MSG is a fun place to play. It's historic. I don't know if I've ever interviewed a player that wasn't looking forward to playing at Madison Square Garden, except for Jay Bouwmeester, because when I asked him about that, Jay Bouwmeester, I think, scored his first goal at MSG. If not his first goal, his first assist. It was something like that. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't have been less excited. But that's Jay Bouwmeester. I don't know if he gets excited even at his birthday. But getting back to it, for this game, there were some embarrassing things. Cody McLeod playing was embarrassing for the Rangers because it proved my point where they are playing him thinking that he is going to add this mythical toughness and it's really going to help, even though, like I pointed out, he scored like 8 points in the last 3 years. But the toughness factor, and I guess the Rangers were highlighting the hits on the broadcast, but I had the sound off, so I didn't hear that. That was good. And so that didn't help, right? Pavel Buchnevich is now hurt. He's out indefinitely. That doesn't help.
Yeah.
The Leafs, I could tell at the very beginning, were outworking them to the point where the Rangers just weren't elevating their game to the degree of the Leafs, and that was a problem. But, one thing I noticed, Mike, there's a bit of a win streak without somebody in the Leafs lineup. Who might that somebody be? Yeah. There's somebody missing from the Leafs lineup that you thought was an integral part of it, and he hasn't been lately.
Morgan Riley?
No. Matt Martin. Matt Martin. They're a lot faster without Matt Martin, aren't they, Mike? You're on the witness stand now. Don't lie.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this. When it comes to April and they're in the playoffs,
I'm going to throw you out for contempt of court. You're avoiding the question. All I asked you was, and you have to answer the question: are they faster without Matt Martin?
Are they
as a team? Are they faster?
Well, it's one player. You're talking
about faster without? See, I'm going to throw you. I'm going to lock you up in jail. You can't even answer the question.
He's one player.
Okay, Peter, can you answer the question?
Yes, they are. And here's the thing that's interesting about this. So the Leafs go on this 4-game run. They beat 2 good teams. They beat 2 iffy teams. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you see the tweets from the Leafs community, because even if you follow one, you follow 1,000 because of the retweets. You see the new Leafs lineup has a 56% score adjusted Corsi for.
Yeah.
The old Leafs lineup had a 48. Okay, just the point being is it plays to the wheelhouse of the criticisms that were going on for the last month of Babcock about his player usage and who he should, and his roster creation, and who he was using, good combinations. You take these guys out, it justifies what we have been saying.
Right.
There's merit there. It's not 100%, but there's merit. The point being is, what needs to happen with this kind of logic about this is Babcock prepared to see if this is sustainable? That's the question. It's not whether who's right or who's wrong about the usage. Is the coach controls everything. So the question becomes, what is he likely to do? Babcock's MO is probably to gradually go back to what he knows.
Oh, he was supposed to go back already. He said after a couple games he was going to switch back, but he hasn't yet.
Yeah. No, he hasn't.
So but that's the thing. Now that's the observation point, Russ. That's the thing that everyone should be going on. Does Babcock change his approach based on what he's? Mike thinks no. Russ, you think he might?
No, I'm telling you right now what is going to happen. They have one bad game where the line of Marner, Kadri, and Marleau are on the ice for 3 goals. And what will end up happening is the next game, Leo Komarov will be back on that line, and Mitch Marner will probably be back on the 3rd line with Van Riemsdyk and Bozak, and then Connor Brown will be on the 4th line. He'll go back, and that's why I say, right now everybody's excited about Travis Dermott, and I think Travis Dermott, I believe will stay. I believe he's going to stay with them for the rest of the year. He'll probably be the 6th defense on the bottom pairing. For the rest of the year. I think he's staking a case for being a top 4 next year. The way he's playing so far, he's got speed. He's confident. He's got really good hockey IQ. I mean, he's a very good young player. I've watched him play with the Marlies for a couple of years. I've said all along. I thought he
likes him. He's come on our show. He really likes Travis Dermott.
I've said all along that he was an NHLer. It was just a question of when they got around to it, and they may have overcooked him in the AHL, where now he's ready. But they've got Connor Carrick. They've got Andreas Borgman. Connor Carrick's not a rookie, but Borgman is. So is Dermott. When it comes down to April, unless they make some sort of trade, one of those 6 defensemen is going to be Roman Polak. It's going to be Roman. You will not get Mike Babcock to not put his veterans in when it comes to the playoffs. Last year, he put Matt Hunwick in the top 4. He put Roman Polak.
You're falling into a potential rabbit hole here because if for some reason, and I don't think right now Babcock could switch this lineup even if he wants to, because I think he would get so much heat from above. So what if he wins? What do they have? 32 games left? 31 games?
30, I think.
What if they win 25 out of the 30?
Yeah, then he can't
switch back.
Yeah, then he can't change it. Right, but Russ, what I'm saying is, like, they have, after tomorrow night against Boston, they have a 5-game homestand. They have a bad game in Boston.
But what if they don't have a bad one? That's my big thing.
Then you can't.
They are a better team. Do they not look better with this construction than they have in the last month?
In a small window, yes. You'd be stupid not to. I mean, they look better now with Dominic Moore as their 4th line center than a slower, more ponderous Freddie Gauthier.
Right. Remember, I told you Dominic Moore did not look happy in Philly when I passed him in the press box because he knows he should be out there. This is the thing, and Peter can attest to this, and you can too. We've watched hockey for a long time. Sometimes the coach is the last one to figure out the right player combination. Sometimes the fans do know before the coach because the coach has biases and likes certain guys and feels comfortable, and that's two less things that he has to worry about if he puts out his guys. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, he has stumbled upon something here now that could be their ticket to getting out of the first round of the playoffs, even without an addition.
Well, and this is, and we'll get off the Leafs here and talk about other things in a second. This is where the dilemma comes in for Lamoriello and Babcock before the deadline. They just sent one of the forwards who's barely played this year, Nikita Soshnikov. They sent him down for a conditioning stint to the AHL. He's not waiver. He'd have to clear waivers. So would Josh Levo. These are guys that they've had on the roster or often, like either on IR or off of IR, trying to that shell game of keeping these guys on the roster. The only guy who can be sent down to the minors without clearing waivers is Kasperi Kapanen. And Kasperi Kapanen has been on the fourth line and has provided speed and has scored 3 goals in, I think, 9 games. He's looked really good. But when it comes down to it, before the deadline, if it's going to be who's going to go down or do we risk exposing one of these guys to waivers, they're going to send Kasperi Kapanen down. And when Kasperi Kapanen gets
he has 10 goals in 15 games at that point.
Well, right, but I'm assuming that's not going to be the case, Russ. If he makes it that they can't send him down, then they can't send him down. But right now, since he's waiver eligible or waiver exempt, they're going to send him down. And who's the guy who's going to step back in the lineup? It's going to be Matt freaking Martin. So that's yeah.
But
so anyway.
I mean, after the deadline, they can bring Kapanen back up because the roster size.
Right.
So it's a temporary thing, right? Yeah. And that's the shell game that they'll try to do because we all know before the deadline, here come the big amounts of waivers. See if you can slide someone down. Who's there? It happens every year. And then and guys do it in case they need to add someone to get them on the roster.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to do it. It's a short-term problem, Mike, but it solves itself long-term.
Right. And right now, as you've seen with other people who've been placed on waivers, 2-3 weeks before the deadline, if anybody with any kind of value is out there, Cody McLeod got claimed. Yeah. So if you put Josh Levo or Soshnikov on waivers, they're going to get claimed. So
does Josh Levo have a future with the Leafs?
Yeah, I don't know if he has a future with the Leafs, but he has a future in the NHL. I think I think if he played in the top 9 of any team, he would score 15 to 20 goals. He's got a good shot.
I think that's fair about Levo.
Yeah,
here's
but
what I would say,
so trade him. Or use them. That's
because they always want to own everybody. The Leafs, they hold their rights like grim death. They just do.
Right.
But Peter, here's the one thing about this: if you ever go back and watch, like on the History Channel, these old the guys that really were around and sort of created everything. I hate those guys in a way because, like, I always wanted to be a guy that could create something. But back in like the early 1900s, it was easy to create something new. All you had to do was really look around and say, you know what? We could use this and create it, right? And a lot of times those guys would go out and try and create something, and by accident find something better. And that's what I think is happening with the Leafs.
Al Gore created the internet. Okay.
It's a series of tubes, Mike.
All right. Let's just go through the scores here quickly. Bruins won over the Blues 3-1. The Bruins, they had that 18-game point streak. It was snapped by Anaheim. They come back and a win over the Blues, and they play the Leafs on Saturday.
I do want to say Ty Anderson's a little full of himself now because, like, he not only is living the Patriots' dream, but he goes, "No, this is on Twitter. This is the start of a 19-point streak," and and he's trying to troll everybody, and it's like.
Well, the one thing Ty was speaking truth to the Boston fan base because Tuukka Rask made an unbelievable save last night, an unbelievable glove save.
They don't hate him anymore, you mean?
Right, and he's like, yeah, and he basically said there are still some people that hate this guy. I mean, it's just I don't get it.
I don't get it.
So Florida beat the Sabres 4-2. Devils win 4-3 over the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, Russ, you watched some of this game, and
I watched most of it.
Yeah, Alex Lyon got the start for Philadelphia.
Yep, Lyon got the start. It was his first start. It was his second appearance, and it pretty much went the way I think I said it was going to go yesterday. Like, he's a positional goalie, and the issue with when you bring in a young positional goalie is if you have a coach that wants to lock it down when you have a lead, and you have a young defense, that is a bad combination in my eyes because now you have put all this pressure on a first-time goalie to sort of play perfect hockey in the third period, and one squirted through late. Nico Hischier had a great goal, like Robert Haig was draped all over him, and he put it, and Lyon squeezed the pads, and it trickled through, and Lyon said, "Hey, that's on me," and that's all well and good. I like the kid. I watched him at Yale. I think he's going to be a pretty good goalie. I don't know if he's a 1. I think he's a backup, but he's a pretty good goalie. But the point is, it's hard for a rookie to play that style, that Hackstall style, and that's why I don't like. I think when you're a coach, you do have to adapt sometimes to the way your players are and the lineup is. And the Flyers didn't do that, and it cost them a win. And you never know which one of these wins will cost them the playoffs. You never know.
Well,
how many teams though can go from getting a lead or whatever, or playing a driving game, to then lock it down? How many teams in the NHL do that with consistency?
5.
What exactly? And so I think, and there's been enough analytical evidence to go in and say you shouldn't do it unless you're maybe one of the 5.
Right.
But coaches, you watch things like this is the variable of hockey. Sometimes people see something that says, I've got to make a decision this way, or we practice this and practice to try this. This is the time to implement it. I mean, if you're the Flyers, are you really desperate to make the playoffs, or are you sort of okay? I mean, there's a whole bunch of other variables there. So maybe Hackstall feels like, yeah, we're going to try this because I need to know what can be done and what can't. And this is the only way to find out.
So now that's the game with Ottawa. You've got Elliott hurt.
Yeah.
You've got Neuwirth probably not feeling sick anymore, but sick about his performance. And you've got Lyon, who's only started 1 game, and you probably need to win this game against Ottawa now.
And this was a
tough place to be. It's at home, but it's a tough place to be.
This was a big game for the Devils because if you look at the standings right now, I mean, the top 2, the second and third slots in the Metro and the 2 wild cards are all, they're all going to be taken by obviously teams in the Metro division. But you got Jersey at 60, Pittsburgh at 59, Columbus at 58, Philly, Carolina, after they beat the Canadiens 2-0 last night, at 56, and the Rangers and the Islanders at 55. So you have 7 teams within 5 points.
Yeah, it's a pressure cooker.
Yeah. Now, I only watched a couple minutes of this game, Peter, and it really I was dumbfounded by some of the things that happened. I'm talking about the Jets and the Golden Knights.
Yeah.
I turned on that game at the end of the second period, early third, and it was 2-1. And it got really, really nuts in the last couple minutes of regulation when the Jets tied it up, and then into overtime when I don't know how Josh Morrissey misses the open net with this mad scramble.
Yeah.
And then off the face-off, there was another ridiculous – I thought they were showing a replay. There was this other mad scramble, and they couldn't score, and then David Perron comes down and scores the overtime winner.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't watch it live. I had to catch up on that because I'm in Vancouver, and the way NHL rights work, I can't stream my stream from home here and blah, blah, blah. Anyways.
Which is crazy.
Once I sort of caught my breath from just reading Twitter and then found the highlights and then found the questions again come up about Paul Maurice and OT and his tactics and his players. And this has been something that's been written about. It's been something that's talked about. And the one thing that we're seeing in OT right now is possession is everything. And guys, you hold the puck, you can't go into it. You're on opposite ends of the bench. So when you're on offensive zone, you can change on the fly, and guys are getting gassed. And I think Buff and Wheeler both had a 2-minute shift at one point, and we're just done. And, that's the kind of thing that happens with this group. Maurice puts a weird combination out. He hasn't practiced how to do this stuff to get players fresh legs out when you get trapped or when you get the puck out and taking a gamble to do it. And the Jets just lose an OT. That's just what they do. And regardless of the craziness, I mean, Morrissey was dismayed after. I saw the interview with him. He just couldn't believe what had happened.
He hit the post.
I mean, they're a train wreck in OT, and they're not dealing with it well.
Well, but here's the thing. All right. OT is a train wreck. 3-on-3 is not real hockey. No. And I've gotten challenged on this on my Facebook account, but I'm telling you, in 10 years, we're going to look at the amount of goals that some guys are getting in this 3-on-3 overtime, and you're going to be like, yeah, they shouldn't have that many goals. It's just crazy. It's not, I get it. It's the way you're getting quicker games and not having to play 20 overtimes. But at the end of the day, I think if we took a poll of NHL fans, they would rather have the ties if they're true fans. Now, the guy who's just going to see a game that wants to see a winner or a loser, fine. But I'm telling you, the true fans would rather see a tie, because at the end of the day now, this has really skewed the regular season compared to the playoffs. Because the playoffs now doesn't have that. It's completely different. And everything changes when a team goes into OT in the playoffs.
I would rather see a game decided by 3-on-3 overtime than by the shootout, because the shootout.
I agree, but I'm saying get rid of both. You got to get rid of both.
Russ, before they put 3-on-3 in, I wondered if there was going to be players who would become 3-on-3 specialists, and I wrote a blog about this. And I said, should goals in 3-on-3 count the same way a regular in the first 60 minutes count, depending on the thing? Should it be on a player stat sheet in the same level?
No, I don't.
Oh man, was there some
I know
went after me for all sorts of logic,
but it's not the same as scoring a 5-on-5.
I don't think it is either.
Yeah, but
they said because a 3-on-3 can exist in a regular game, that justifies it. Okay, fine.
Yeah, but the Players Association would fight for that right to count.
Yeah, and I understand all those logics, but you could just have a different one, OT goals, because you sure have an OT win and an OT loss. So why can't you have an overtime goal on the stat sheet?
I agree.
But the thing I would rather see is go to the 3-2-1 system. 3 for a regulation win, 2 for an overtime win, 1 each for a tie if it's not decided in overtime. I actually like the tie point as opposed to the loser point. So each team gets a point, or two if you win an OT, and none if you get 0, right? Like if you don't win, if you lose an OT, you get 0, but the winner only gets 2, and then 1 and 1. If you don't settle an OT, get rid of the shootout. Like just get rid of it.
Yeah,
everyone likes to win, but you don't like it being decided that way. So 3-2-1, and be done with it. And at the end of the day,
I'm better with that, but I'm getting tired of 3-on-3 overtime simply because I'm seeing a lot of flukiness. That's the problem.
Yeah, and as an example, the Anaheim Ottawa game last night, it was 1-1. Anaheim tied it late in the third period. They take a penalty with, I think, 25, 30 seconds left to go in regulation. And, it being a cross-conference game, they're interested in guaranteeing themselves the point. So getting out of regulation.
Right.
They got the point, and then in overtime, it's a 4-on-3 power play with Erik Karlsson at the quarterbacking. And I think maybe less than a minute, Ottawa got the game winner. But I don't think Anaheim cared much because they got the point that they needed.
Yeah.
And when you have a power play in overtime, especially when it's 4-on-3, I mean I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm certain the percentages for a 4-on-3 power play is much greater than the normal 5-on-4 power play. So, anyway. So
that's just my little rant. That's all.
Yeah, I agree.
The two Alberta franchises did not have good nights last night. The Calgary Flames were leading the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-2. Lightning come back and score 5 unanswered goals and win 7-4. The Flames, I think I got this right, Peter. The Flames have blown leads in the last 6 games, 6 straight games. And this is surprising because Mike Smith was an all-star goaltender. They have one of the best defenses, at least on paper, in the league. Blue lines, but they can't seem to hold the lead.
There is some serious discontent in Calgary about some of the stuff Gulitson's doing. If you read some of the Flames writers and things, there's a lot of excuse me, there's a lot of questions in Calgary, not with the level of sort of venom and ferocity that you see in Toronto during the last month, but there's a lot of questions about what the team is doing and some of the makeup there. And I think the different point is that Calgary on paper looks like a team that should be near the top of the Pacific, and it's not. And why? And no one can really figure it out. And one of the things now is I've seen some very interesting criticism about TJ Brody, who was supposed to be one of their top 2D, and now and he's only 27. And there was something I saw yesterday, I think, from Kent Wilson of the Athletic, where he was saying this might be an age-related thing starting at 27 for Brody. I mean, maybe we're taking this too far with some of the measurements we're doing. I don't know. I mean, Kent Wilson's a smart guy. I really like what he writes, but they're really searching for answers in Calgary from the outside and I think the inside, and no one can really put it on. And if Calgary is going to make a trade, maybe they're the team that makes the hockey trade before the deadline. Because
I think they're going to now. I agree.
Something's not working there. And if Treliving's going to have, has a Brian Burke in his organization, there's going to be some sort of discussion or pressure or things.
And that's maybe where we see Bennett get moved. That's where
I think it's going to be Bennett. It's the logical choice. And maybe if they feel they aren't going to re-sign Stajan or Backlund, one of them goes too. I don't think they trade Backlund. I think they like what he does from a 5-on-5 perspective. Yeah. But definitely Bennett, as we've talked about before, could be something coming out of Calgary. But something's not right.
Bennett's 21. There's still time to get him back to where he should be.
Right. And if they're trading Bennett for somebody as a hockey trade, it would have to be somebody who's under contract for at least a couple years. A guy like a Mike Hoffman, who I've been here, who've heard there's some connection between the two. That would make a little bit of sense, and it would make sense for Ottawa because he's a young player. But yeah, there's just something not right there, and that's too talented of a team to have this streak going on. And on the other side, in another area of Alberta, although I don't know if they were playing, I think they were playing in Edmonton last night. Colorado, who's without Nathan McKinnon for the next 2 to 4 weeks, which you would think they're done because that guy is everything to that team. Well, they had a 3-1 lead on Edmonton. Edmonton comes charging back. McDavid ties the game with less than a minute left to go in regulation. But then JT Compher scores in overtime and gives the Avalanche a 4-3 win. Now, the Avalanche are in the battle.
Let's freeze-frame this. Freeze-frame it. Who drafted JT Compher?
He's a Sabre draft pick, wasn't he?
Yeah,
that was part of the Ryan O'Reilly deal.
I know.
I mean, honestly, if you look at the two big deals that Tim Murray made, that deal with Colorado and the deal with the Evander Kane-Bogosian deal with Winnipeg, those two trades have set up those teams because Armia and Myers. I know Myers was out last year, but Brendan.
Oh, don't forget. Remember who the draft pick in that trade? Jack Roslovich.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And so I mean, all right. Anyway, okay. So
but you know what, Mike? Like in all fairness, it stings for Buffalo.
Yeah.
But Russ can speak to this. There is a laundry list of trades like that through the NHL history.
Sure, there are.
It just happens, and sometimes you make the wrong estimates about what you're getting and giving up, and guys do that. In theory, most people at the end of that day, at the end of the Kane Bogosian trade, said Buffalo came out better because they got the two better players. And, it's a little bit of luck that Roslovich fell into Winnipeg's hands the way it did. You can't control what happens ahead of you in the draft.
That's like saying the Leafs won the Dion Phaneuf deal, but in a sense they didn't because they got Dion Phaneuf and then they paid him $7 million a year, and Dion Phaneuf was never the number one defenseman that they thought he was when they traded for him. So, I mean,
it's fair. I think the problem with Buffalo was it was in a short time span, so now it affects them for probably 5 years.
Yeah, and as we know, Peter, the most attractive thing about that deal was the fact that Evander Kane was out for the year when they made the deal, so it allowed them to tank.
Yeah.
To get either McDavid or Eichel because he wouldn't be playing, and then they would have him. Right, he would have him next year.
You know what's funny? I can remember before that happened being on the Buzzcast with Kevin Allen, and I floated that idea out, and Kevin waved it off. And that's not a shot at Kevin. I think Kevin's a really smart guy, and I love. Yeah. But I think it was so out of the wheelhouse at that point that a team would do that. But then we saw with the talents of the Eichels, the McDavids, the Matthews, teams are willing to do anything to have a shot at them.
You can't deny nowadays in any professional sport that there's tanking going on. blatant. It's obvious.
What is Cleveland? 1-31 under their current coach, the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah.
Now, I think they've taken tanking maybe too far because
that's just incompetence. I think they actually want to win in Cleveland. They just don't know how to. Okay, let's go to Russ.
Hold on. There's one other guy. I just wrote about him for a website called GTS. Brendan Lemieux is starting to come of age too, and that is another guy from one of those deals.
Yep. Yeah, and Zadorov is playing much better now.
I'm telling you, they stripped what was a very rich farm system there.
Yep.
They're building it back now, but it takes a while. Yeah,
well, I mean, the Sabres are in the bottom 2 or 3 in the league right now, but Rochester is playing well. So, I mean, if their goal was to sort of build from the ground up, I guess they're starting to do that now. But the thing is that a lot, I know that they added a lot of like AHL veterans to support some of the youngsters. So it's sort of a little bit of a shell game here. Yeah. So anyway, let's go to some questions in the chat, Russ.
All right. So first one. I have it here. Carolina for Mike Doyle. If Carolina can make a move and get a top 6 forward, I could see them getting in the playoffs. So they basically and somebody else I think asked also, who could Carolina get? Well, like if the Rangers are going to continue to lose and they lose like 5 in a row, 6 in a row, they might do that rebuild that they're talking about. If I'm Carolina, I'm going to go for somebody on the Rangers. Now, if I look at them, I think Zuccarello is perfect for them because he is that wily veteran that plays a 200-foot game, who adds to the power play, adds to really everything. Like he is a guy that people probably don't appreciate the kind of game he plays. And so would he possibly yo-yo back to the Rangers? Sure, he might. But then again, he might like it when he goes there and sees the wealth of talent that they have.
Based on the fact that I think Carolina would want to trade if Carolina's trading young assets, we're not talking about a rental. We're talking about them trading for somebody who they could hold on for 2 or 3 years, and they're probably with their overload of defensive prospects. If they're trading for somebody who they want to hold on for a couple years, and obviously I think they're trading for somebody who can score goals because they need offense. I would say a guy like Alex Galchenyuk makes the most sense because he's under contract for another, I think, 2 years at less than $5 million. Right, it'll cost more, but I mean, I'm sorry, they're not going to make the playoffs unless they're going to trade for a rental. And I think they want something that will help them longer than just this year. Not to say give up Jake Bean, but I mean, you've got prospects in the organization. You've got a lot of them. Use one of them and get somebody who can help you now.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the case, right? Like for a lot of GMs, you work so hard to get a stable of prospects, but then you have to recognize you can't use all of them. And if you use all of them, you're just letting other things go out the door to get them in. And it becomes a continuing cycle of never giving yourself that chance to get over the hump, to get what else you need. And every team hits that point. Carolina's probably there. And They should do that. They should take that. You got to take a risk. That's the first decision. The second decision is what is the risk and how do you measure the risk?
And similar to what happened in Buffalo. And I give Thomas Dundon, he's not Terry Pagula, but again, the new owner comes in and he wants to do something to show, okay, I want to help this team to win. And when Pagula came in with Buffalo a few years back, the first thing he did was trade for Brad Boyes when Brad Boyes was still an effective player. And that helped the Sabres get into the playoffs. Dundon, he comes in and, they have room under the cap. If he says, go out and get me somebody, he's giving carte blanche to Ron Francis to do that. So, I would think there's a possibility if they stay in this race, if they're 2-3 points out, that they'll make some sort of move, not something that'll cost them a ton, but they'll make some sort of move to try to improve their chances.
All right, so now we have questions from Bill C. I'm going to make them quick because he's literally directing them at me, but he goes, when do I post my first ranking of the year? I just got through the top prospect game. Because I'm going to the 5 Nations, I'll post it after the 5 Nations. That's in the middle of February. So right after the 5 Nations, I'll post my top 31.
Where is the 5 Nations?
It's in Plymouth, Michigan.
Okay.
So that's the first one. Have I kept up with Dayton Rasmussen? Yes. The thing about him is I felt like he was a really good prospect in last year's draft, and he still is. Problem is he had a concussion right before the combine, so he was limited in what he could do there. I think he also had a knee injury that he had to recover from. He's only played 2 games for Denver. He's not the starter, so he's not going to get drafted. He's going to be one of those free agent signings down the line. He's going to be with Denver, and Denver will make a run with him, and that's when we'll be talking about Dayton Rasmussen, I think. And then, okay, so now we have one from Mike Doyle. Besides a number 3 center, do you think Rutherford will try and make another big move to try and get a top 6 winger? If no, if yes, who are they? And so I'll tell you one that I saw right off the bat, Radim Vrbata. He's in Florida. He's not staying. He'd be perfect for the Penguins.
Yeah, with the Penguins, with their cap situation, I would say it would have to be somebody cheap. Not that I think the Rangers are in the habit of doing any favors for the Penguins, but a Grabner would make sense because of his reasonable salary. But I would have a weird feel. Botterill. There are some, maybe a Benoit Pouliot, somebody like that. Who's a UFA at the end of the year, probably wouldn't cost him a ton. Not that he's a top 6 guy, but he's an experienced big body. I could see them adding a player like that because I think that's a guy you trade for a draft pick, and Botterill and Rutherford have that relationship going back to him being assistant in Pittsburgh, so I could see that happening.
Yep. Another question: could the Jets trade for Ryan McDonough from Brandon? Here's the thing: I think if both teams got together and Winnipeg said, we're willing to put Trouba in this deal, I think they would talk. And I think, unfortunately for Winnipeg, though, they would have to add to that. So Winnipeg would have to give the Rangers some other either roster player or prospect like a Nick Petan or somebody who's very close to sweeten that deal. And then the Rangers would have to have an idea they could re-sign Trouba, which if they could, I think they would be amenable to that because – look, Shattenkirk's going to come back healthy soon, and they have Shea. They could switch out a McDonough for Trouba. I think that is a possibility.
And Winnipeg would have to have assurances from McDonough's agent that he would extend.
Yeah, so McDonough's got to agree to that. Mm-hmm. And McDonough's only got 1 year left on his deal after that. That's a huge risk for Winnipeg.
So he knows the cold.
That's a summer deal, though. That's really a summer deal.
I mean, but they're just asking if it's possible. I think.
Yeah, no.
You have to also remember if it's possible. I mean, it's possible in the summer. Trouba's out 6 to 8 weeks, so unless Rangers decide they're done,
right,
it ain't happening. And any deal, and I don't think Trouba would have a problem playing in New York. To tell you the honest truth, I think that's perfectly fine from what we know about Jacob Trouba and where he would get a chance to play. The city, proximity to family, it's not very far, easy to get in and out of. That would play in his wheelhouse, I think, quite well.
Well, that's why Toronto has always been. There's been speculation that he doesn't want to go to another Canadian city, but he's from Michigan. Not exactly it's not really that far from Toronto to Detroit. So, I would think that there would be a little bit of an exception there when it came to the Leafs, plus playing for a team that's on an upward trajectory. If there was the possibility of that deal going down the line, that would be more of the exception than the rule. But I mean, we'll see. Any other ones, Russ?
Yep. What is Michael Grabner worth if he gets to the market? I think he's worth a conditional first and a prospect of some sort.
I would, conditional first going down to a second round pick.
Correct.
Grade
and
B
prospect.
Grade B prospect.
Grade B prospect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, I think on a good team, he's a third liner and a good special teamer. And we know in terms of his penalty killing, he's extremely quick.
Yeah, you got to watch out for him. I mean,
he's a demon shorthanded. So yeah,
and he's the king of empty net goals too. I mean, gotten past that this year, but he gets a lot of empty net goals too.
That would be Grabner could be the guy that the Jets would maybe consider to put onto their he would definitely get PK time. That's for sure. He'd probably get first PK time, and he could maybe he's a left winger, right?
Yes.
Left winger. So if he could play on his off wing, he could move Brandon Tanev off the third line because they're essentially the same kind of player, but with a lot more offensive upside from Grabner. and the speed there. So that's the challenge there. But he's the kind of guy that a lot of people are saying, forget about adding a center in the Jets thing, get a top 6 or top 9 forward to just boost it down either side, because it's just going to make them that much more dangerous.
See, the team that I thought that Grabner would fit the best with is a team that traditionally has been slotted as really slow, but they've started to turn over their roster a little bit, added some younger players, and they've gotten faster over the last year, and that's the LA Kings. Because if you added a speedster like Grabner to that lineup, I mean, there's still some guys, the Carters and the Kopitars, who aren't exactly the fleetest of foot, but if you add a speedster like Grabner in the depth of that forward group, that would really make a difference. And I think that if they make the playoffs, which I think that they're going to, with the goaltending, with the defense that they have, if you add one more forward, a little scoring, I think they're dangerous.
All right, so now Broken Narcissist asks, are the Leafs smart enough to get out of Zaitsev's contract in the offseason? I'll tell you what, if they're sold on Travis Dermott, considering that they did give Zaitsev 7 years, he's probably got 5 years left or 4 years left.
This is the first year of the 7 years.
It was the first year, so he's got 6 years left. It wouldn't shock me if he gets traded at some point down the line if they feel like Dermott is a top 4 guy, because you don't want Zaitsev on your bottom pairing. You don't.
I don't know who the person asking the question is,
Broken Narcissist.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Mr. Narcissist, you're clueless, because Mike Babcock loves Zaitsev.
Is he going to still love him if he continues to get injured, though? That's the question.
It was a broken foot. It was not something, it wasn't like a shoulder popping out. It was a freak thing. And he played most of the games in his rookie year. No, Babcock loves it.
Like, he's not what they thought he would be just yet. He's good, but he's not great.
That's the thing. Babcock has been effusive in his praise of Zaitsev. He loves him. He thinks he's a top 4 guy. He thinks he's smart. He's a right-hand shot. I mean, that's the thing. He's a right-hand shot. He's the only right-hand shot that's a legitimate top 4. So I think there's a better chance of them trading Jake Gardner than there is getting out of Zaitsev's contract. There's Zaitsev's going to be there for, I would say, at least the next 4 or 5 years.
Okay, Peter, any thoughts?
Sorry, I missed that because I dropped out.
The question basically was,
I had to log back in.
Get out of Zaitsev's contract in the offseason. I said, look, if they felt like Travis Dermott was a top 4 guy, I think they would consider offers, because I don't think you want Zaitsev on your bottom pair. Oh, Peter's gone again, so never mind. Another question. Poor Peter. Another question was, do we think there'll be any big trades going down at the deadline, or is it going to be smaller pieces? I think if there's a big trade, it's going to be at the 11th hour. I think there'll be a lot of small pieces leading up to it.
Sorry, I missed the question because I keep.
You missed every question.
Yeah, no, okay. So
you might as well just leave.
Whoa. Here's the question: do you think there are going to be any big deals before the deadline, or do you think it's going to be just rental deals and smaller deals?
I think there'll be one big deal. That will not like earth shattering, but enough and I think it comes from Pittsburgh. They usually like to get ahead of the game, and I think Cheryl will do that and give it a no, it's Rutherford. Sorry, right? Rutherford. Sorry, Cheryl's in Jersey. Give it a shot like he had like in the past, and try and shake something up, because I think they've got to take another shot. And that's where it starts first. That's the first domino.
Yeah, and if they do that, it's probably going to be for that third line center. I mean, I could see them. It may be a rental. It may be somebody who's got a year. Like the name that's been out there for a little while has been Pajot from the Senators. I'm not convinced how much Pajot the Sens want to trade Pajot, because he's got 3 years left and he's signed for I think $3.1 million. So
it's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's the guy that apparently they want to trade is Zach Smith, but I don't think as many people want Zach Smith as want Pajot. So that's the sort of balance here. But I agree, Rutherford. They're going to make them. They're surging right now. They play Washington tonight. I think they're in second place right now in the Metro. They've got this limited window to have a chance to win a third in a row. I would think that they're going to go for it, and why not? But I have a feeling there'll be more than just one. I think there'll be a couple big deals.
I think there'll be at least one, but I do think it'll be late. So here's the nickel question. The nickel question is, do I think the Islanders can make the playoffs if they get a goalie? Like, this is one that I could literally talk to you about for 2 hours. But the boiled down version is, and I forget who asked the question, sorry. But the basic boiled down version is this. It should have been a month ago. It hasn't happened yet. And if he waits till the deadline, it could be too late.
Yeah.
That's really the truth.
It needs to be yesterday. And not to say that Robin Lehner is the cure-all, because I don't think he is, but I think he's a damn sight better than Halak and Greiss. I've seen Halak lose to Florida this week. I saw Greiss give up 5 goals to Toronto, and I think on at least 2 of them he was directly at fault. You're not going to win. I mean, they're 5 points out of a playoff spot right now, or 4 or 5 points out of a playoff spot. You don't make that move now. Why even bother?
Yeah.
You got any more last one or two?
I'm looking. Somebody asked, like, why hasn't Garth gotten one yet? Ask Garth. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, just while Russ is looking, a little bit of breaking news, kind of sad news.
Yeah.
Spector tweeted this out. I think we should, say some condolences. Robert Larsson, father of Oiler Adam, has died at age 50. He came from Sweden last week. I'm just reading the tweet, to visit his son and was stricken. Spent a week in hospital, passed around midnight Thursday. Both paid for Skellefteå. Our flags are half-mast today. So condolences to Adam. I mean, that's very sad. That's too bad.
I mean, yeah, especially, I don't know what the circumstances were. If it was, heart attack or illness related. He said he was in the hospital. So, that 50 years old. That's
young.
Way, way, way too young. Yeah. That's
I think that's it. I don't think I see anything else.
Okay. No big deal. We'll try to do this.
We got one last one. Broken Narcissist got one in under the wire.
Oh boy. I hope it's as good as his last one.
He still thanked us for answering the question, Mike. So
good. That's, at least he's polite.
Could Nashville deal Eeli Tolvanen? I don't think so. I've spoken to some people. They do like what he could potentially do goal scoring wise, and I think the same as Fiala. They're gonna give him a lot of chances before he ever gets there.
Yeah,
as they should.
If Nashville, and I'll keep bringing up the name, and I know that Russ will pour cold water on it, but if Nashville, and even I believe it was Pierre LeBrun last night on the TSN Insiders, said he doesn't think that the Mike Fisher move is the move that Nashville is going to make. That they're going to probably try to add a top 6 winger before the deadline. If they do try to trade for a top 6 winger, teams, if they're not going to trade Tolvanen, they're not going to trade Kevin Fiala, they're going to be asking for a guy like Dante Fabro.
Yeah.
They may not give him up, but that's who they'll be asking for. So, if you're, and I don't know if that's for Evander Kane or if that's for Pacioretty or whoever, but that's the price that you're probably going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay a top prospect to get that guy who could be the one piece that gets you to the Stanley Cup final and maybe even wins it for Nashville. And that, we have friends who cover that team, like Pete Weber. It would be great to go to the Stanley Cup. I didn't go last year, but I would like to go to Nashville. That would be a great thing. But I think that they might be one piece away, and that piece will cost them.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the big question.
Okay.
The big question is non-hockey related.
Okay.
What is your favorite arcade game? We'll start with Peter first, then Mike.
It's Galaga or Donkey Kong.
Okay. Those are solid choices.
Mm-hmm. I would say Missile Command and, oh boy, what's the other one? Dig Dug.
Dig Dug.
Dig Dug. I like Dig Dug.
My best friend loved Dig Dug. I used to walk away from him. Like, I would be like, dude, I'm getting more beer. I can't play any more Dig Dug. But he loved it.
Super Mario Brothers 2 also was pretty good.
The one that I was best at was Space Invaders. I was a Space Invaders master. I still would play it. I have like that Atari stick you could hook up to your TV. I haven't done it in a while, but I like it. The other one is the original Atari football in the arcade that had the roller balls that you actually had to move with your hands. I got to tell you, we used to be in the arcade sweating. We used to get like blisters from that game. It had all X's and O's on the field. I I'll see if I can put the link in the chat room for that. I'm telling you, this game was physical. Like, you actually had to be physical to play it, and people would line up to play this game. And I loved pinball, right? But this was after pinball, so I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, and the most overrated is Pac-Man.
Yeah. I mean, I played a lot of Pac-Man.
Ms. Pac-Man's better. Ms. Pac-Man.
I hate Pac-Man because basically, I wanted to play it back in the day, but like somebody who memorized the pattern they basically memorized the pattern that you do to not get killed, and they played the game for like 6 hours, and by the time that you were ready to play, the place was ready to close. So forget it. All right, that's enough. We will be back on Monday, hopefully, with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember,
I did like Mortal Kombat too. No, go ahead. That's fine.
And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.